Representative Struzzi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Chancellor. And I want to thank the various presidents from the universities around the state who are here today, particularly Dr. Driscoll from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which is in my district. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, one, go Hawks. There is competition in a good way amongst the universities, I would add. As was mentioned earlier, you know, the universities within our communities are significant economic drivers. They are the top employer for Indiana County, and we truly appreciate that. I think we can all value that and build upon that. But my concern, and you mentioned the online courses. I know they were mentioned briefly earlier. My concern, as we see the shift to millennial learners, the more on-screen learners, what does that do in your eyes, Chancellor, you know, to having students actually on campus, using the facilities, and again, contributing to our local economies? I know that that's not your business, but it does concern me because I see that transition continuing and more students simply learning from home. I can understand how that would increase enrollment, but again, you know, your view on that and what we can do to perhaps balance online learning with in-classroom learning.
Yeah, I mean, again, I referred to it earlier, not all students are the same, right? And some students really need and benefit enormously from a very high-touch on-campus experience. Some students can't. I mean, if you're a working adult and you've got a family and you're working a full-time job, that option to attend university, you know, 9 to 5 or even in the evening is not possible. You know, people who are living in remote rural communities, it's also not possible. So, so there's a variety of student groups for whom online makes a huge difference, and they're actually net new largely. Mm-hmm. They're not. It's not like you're going to cannibalize the on-the-ground existing population. And the data that I've seen from places like Georgia Tech, where they are running online and face-to-face programs side by side, if you look at the enrollments and the distribution of students through both, they're clearly not cannibalizing. There's a very modest amount of overlap. Where you're talking about the on-campus population, the availability of online courses introduces a degree of flexibility to take courses you might not otherwise have access to or have time to take. You can take them in summer. You can get potentially through your degree much more quickly, which saves you money. You know, so there's a lot of affordances even for the on-campus population. But frankly, I don't see either here or pretty much anywhere else in the country how online is going to encroach on the communitarian nature of and the economy that's generated by students living and being on campus. That would be my professional opinion.
Good, thank you. I also want to appreciate your visionary leadership. I know that you came out to Indiana, Pennsylvania, and other communities and shared your vision for the state system. And I think what we've heard today is, you know, we want to see the system succeed. We want to see it strengthened. We want to make sure that all the universities stay as they are and improve and grow. But my question, and it was in both of the reports that we've had the chance to review, is that there are certain impediments, I think, and I'm asking for your opinion on this, some impediments that will prevent you from having your vision realized. And just to be specific, you know, it mentioned the Board of Governors and the lack of agility to turn a ship this large, or the will to turn a ship this large. So, you know, what's your view on the impediments? What can we do as a legislature to help you overcome those impediments? So
the biggest challenge I think that the board is going to face, look, Pennsylvania said it before, so, you know, we're facing an interesting array of challenges. They didn't just happen overnight. This is years in the making, decades really in the making. My theory of the case is that the reason we are where we are is because the political nature of decision making, not just sort of legislature, board, et cetera, but it, you know, happens right down to the tough decisions are hard to make, right? And they're hard to make and they're deeply felt emotionally because, you know, you serve the people of Indiana, you know, and that surround, and others have spoken for other universities that are here, and those are, you know, deeply emotional ties that are reflected in the communitarian nature of the education that we offer. And yet we are going to have to still take those tough decisions, which means that when those tough decisions happen, we're going to have to collectively exercise the discipline that we don't always exercise, picking up the phone and changing the nature of the conversation, making that decision impossible to take. And we're facing a bunch. This year, we're talking about tuition. We're talking about low enrollment schools, right? We're talking about getting our costs controlled. That's going to require an enormous amount of discipline so that the board can take the actions that the board needs to take, that the leaders of the university can take the actions that the leaders of the university can take in order to begin to address the situation that we're in. That's my Yeah.
Just to get to the hard question, though, do you think there's a need to change the structure of the Board of Governors, to streamline, to minimize the amount of authority that they have? I know it's a tough question, but I think it needs to be posed.
You know, I remember a provost of mine telling me it's never the structure, it's never the organization, it's the people in it. And I don't know, maybe that's relevant. You know, what are our expectations? Do we have an expectation that leading members of the community, political figures, whoever they may be, should be able to have, direct access to a decision that the board needs to take and to try to, is that the structure of the board is fine as long, in my view, as long as our expectations are that the board is given the autonomy that it needs to take the hard decisions that it needs to take, and it itself is held accountable to and by the state. If that's not possible, obviously there's different ways that one can adjust the structure, but my guess is that's probably pretty hard, and I'd rather sort of rely, we were talking a moment ago about culture change, and I would rather rely on the culture change. I think that's probably easier than the legislative-driven restructuring. Just a guess.
Okay, thank you.